The feeling is obvious, real, shared even by many who previously tried to downplay the significance of the events. This papacy has created disorientation, has divided, and in some cases has caused real harm. But what can a simple believer, a lay person, do if the Pope himself says or does things that seem contrary to doctrine, or that even border on heresy? In this video, we will try to answer a question that many are asking themselves in silence, but that can no longer be ignored. What can we do, specifically, when the uneasiness comes from the very top of the Church? Are there tools provided by canon law? Does history offer similar examples? And how can one continue to be Catholic without turning a blind eye to the evidence? Stay with us until the end. What do you discover could change the way you live your faith today, in the midst of this confusion? For 12 years now, the current Pope, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, has been acting with surprising ambiguity, creating confusion that many consider unprecedented. Even so, recognizing his legitimacy, there remains a firm will to avoid the opposite extreme. Sedivacantism, that is, the idea that the Pope has lost his position due to obvious heresies, a radical stance that, nevertheless, is coming back into the picture due to the disorientation coming from Santa Marta. From this tension, a fundamental question arises: how can the faithful, the priests, and even the bishops stay loyal to the Church without turning a blind eye to the obvious errors coming from the top? A delicate question, which has given rise to a real theological and pastoral debate, fueled by authoritative voices like Matt Gasperas, a well-known American Catholic journalist, along with his colleagues from Catholic Unscripted. Everyone seems to agree on one point: the current papacy has caused upheaval, and in some cases, deep doctrinal divides. There are also extreme cases, like that of Dr. Chionci or some excommunicated priests, who claim that Francis isn't really the Pope. According to these theories, the election would be invalid because Benedict XVI never really resigned from the papacy, but only from the practical exercise of ministry. This has led some priests to refuse to name Francis during Mass, incurring canonical sanctions, a sign of genuine discomfort, although expressed in radical ways. The document that started it all was Amoris Laetitia in 2016, in which the possibility of giving communion to divorced and remarried people is opened, even though they remain in an objective state of sin. The reactions were swift. Well-known theologians, like Aidan Nichols, have written detailed criticisms, denouncing proposals considered objectively heretical. And from Rome, silence. Doubts never resolved, never seriously addressed, leaving the faithful at the mercy of confusion. But perhaps the most puzzling aspect is the Pope's evasive behavior. When faced with accusations, he withdraws, partially corrects things, or lets his spokespersons downplay them, like in the famous Scalfari case, when there was talk of a supposed denial of hell. No outright denial, no clear reaffirmation of dogma, a never-before-seen style of governance. How is it possible, we ask ourselves, that a pope can act with so much freedom, while theologians, cardinals, and bishops seem powerless? Where are the doctrinal safeguards and the magisterium? Even documents signed by internationally renowned scholars, like the Correctio Filialis or the open letters to the bishops, have been met with a mixture of silence and irritation. Just think of figures like Aidan Nichols, considered one of the greatest British theologians, or Monsignor Thomas Wynandy, former doctrinal consultant to the American bishops. Their criticisms have been ignored, with a silence that hangs heavy in the air. This is precisely where another critical point emerges: the transformation of the papal office under Francis. He is no longer a faithful guarantor of tradition, but a personal interpreter, often self-referential, as shown by the continuous reference to his own writings in official documents. A clear example is the modification of the Catechism regarding the death penalty, declared inadmissible, based on one of his private speeches and without support in tradition or previous magisterium. It's symbolic of a new approach. It's no longer built on the rock of received doctrine, but on the shifting sands of the Pope's personal opinions. It's no surprise that texts like Fiducia Supplicans have made many bishops' conferences uncomfortable. The practice is clear. The Vatican sends out the message, and, if the people protest, they try to fix it with notes and explanations. But the damage remains, and the confusion too. Meanwhile, the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, once a pillar of orthodoxy, seems to have become a theological laboratory, without coherence and without any real authority among the faithful. Yet, in the middle of this teaching storm, a burning question remains. Who has the authority to say that the Pope is wrong? What if he's wrong? Who can correct him? The Church's official answer is as simple as it is hard to accept. No one. Or rather, only a future Pope, or an ecumenical council, could eventually intervene. And this is where many search through history for similar cases, references, hope. The only documented case of a Pope being condemned for heresy goes all the way back to the 7th century. Pope Honorius I, accused after his death of supporting the Monothelite heresy, was condemned by the Third Council of Constantinople, and the sentence was also confirmed by Pope Leo II. It's a rare but real precedent that shows how even a pope can be wrong, and that the Church, over time, can intervene. But it's a long, complex road. Bishop Athanasius Schneider, one of the clearest and bravest voices in these confusing times, also reminded us of this. There isn't a clear teaching on what to do with a heretical pope who is still in office. There are only theological opinions, some of which say that the pope would automatically lose his position if he were clearly heretical. But it's not definitive doctrine, and the risk is falling into personal judgment, confusion, and even schism. To make things even more complicated, there's the idea of the peaceful and universal acceptance of a pope by the Church. According to this theory, if the whole Church recognizes a man as pope, even with irregularities in his election, such acceptance would heal any defect. It's an old doctrine, defended by theologians like Saint Robert Bellarmine, John of St. Thomas, and Louis Billot. In short, if the whole Church accepts Francis, then he is pope. Period. But the tension doesn't go away, because today, this acceptance is more apparent than real. The bishops are quiet, but they don't always obey. The bishops' conferences offer a silent resistance, and many confused believers seek refuge in tradition, often with more clarity of doctrine than many pastors. It's a strange situation. The Pope, who should be a symbol of unity, has become a cause of division. And yet, as many remember, it's not up to us, simple lay people, or priests, to judge his legitimacy. The authority remains, even when the one who holds it seems not to understand its weight. God bless you.